Mrs. Shashi Tharoor, welcome and welcome to Goa once again.
Good to see you again.
Thank you, likewise. And we've been watching you enjoying yourself in Goa as well, singing away and enjoying it. In fact, we particularly liked your little rendition of Lily the Pink. For viewers who do not know, it's about this interesting lady called Lyria Pinkham, whose compound, she discovered a compound which brought about very efficacious cures for everything, including a weak appetite. The reason I'm bringing this is while we enjoyed your singing, do you think that Congress really has that compound to cure its weak appetite to actually win?
I think you're already seeing that compound at work in this election. Yes. To be very honest, everything we're hearing after the first couple of phases has been very encouraging for us and our allies, and rather dispiriting for the BJP. So in my own mind, I think it's going to be pretty clear that we are looking at the kind of result the BJP has been dreading. And
you're talking nationally, of course.
Nationally. Yeah. No, the South, of course, there's no problem. I've just finished my own election in Kerala, and we're looking at sweeping all the seats in Kerala, as well as all the seats in neighboring Tamil Nadu. So, and I think we're looking at a much better result in both Karnataka and Telangana than last time. So in the South, we will actually do better. Having done very well in 2019, we'll do even better now. Whereas in the North, the problem with the BJP is they maxed out in 2019. So if you really look at the numbers, there were 6 states where they won every seat. 3 states where they won all but 1 seat. 2 states where they won all but 2 seats. In those 11 states, they have nowhere to go but down. And they're going down. We're getting indications from every one of these states. Even Gujarat, where they are not invulnerable. And what's striking about all this is that the BJP actually, it's their election to lose, as you say, but at the same time, if they lose 32 seats, they lose their majority. And they're already on course for losing much more because they've lost at least 30 in the first 2 phases alone.
What the BJP has managed to do in terms of the narrative is this whole 400 par narrative that they have done. My feeling here is that the Congress may not have been able to counter that by saying we are winning. The whole narrative seems to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, in saying that no, they will not touch the 400, as if to say that look, they will not touch the 400, but the Congress is not putting its head out to say no, 400 is not even the argument. No, the argument is whether they're going to win at all or get a majority. So obviously the thing is the Congress is portraying an image that it's going to fight really hard and go down fighting rather than saying that they're here to win.
Now, first of all, I'm not quite sure that that's true because, in fact, the narrative from our side is the BJP has lost control of the narrative. This 400 par they've stopped saying because they're realizing that it's done them only damage. Right. Hype has been so completely divorced from reality.
Correct.
But in the case of the Congress, the fact of the matter remains that both people like me who've been saying it for quite some time, and now in the recent weeks, the leadership, such as the Gandhi family and others, have been openly saying that the BJP's 400 is laughable, 300 is impossible, and even 200 is going to be a challenge for them. That's the situation we're seeing today. Let me stress that this is also based on reports from the ground. We all know that exit polls are taken, but they're not released. Under the law, the Election Commission doesn't permit any exit poll until all 7 phases are over. People are asking. And the word is buzzing around. And it's not that the BJP doesn't have access to the same rumors and the same feedback that we're getting. And that's why you're seeing this increasing note of desperation in the BJP's rhetoric and its conduct. Because they're beginning to see that this story is over for them.
Let's not talk about the Congress, because at the end of the day, it's for you to win also.
But before that, may I just add one more thing that struck me when you were asking a question about 400 par. The BJP's hype was so effective that they managed to convince a lot of people that the dominance of the narrative came from their control of the propaganda machinery in the media in this country.
Right.
So a friend of mine conducted a very interesting experiment in Delhi, and he is a businessman, he's not a politician of any sort. He asked 100 of his friends, for all various aspects of Delhi society and elsewhere. He said, who's going to win? He asked this question already in March. And 95 said BJP. He asked the same 100 people, who will you vote for? And 85 of them said not BJP.
The same demographic.
The same people.
Okay, same people. Yeah, okay.
So in other words, they are voting against the BJP, but they believe from what they are reading and hearing BJP is going to win. But if everybody who votes against the BJP is added up, the BJP is not going to win. That's the point.
Yeah, so as I was saying, the thing is, it's also for the Congress to win, perhaps more than the BJP to lose. And when I say Congress, I mean Congress and its larger umbrella alliance of India. Now, the issue is that what are your numbers? If you're saying BJP goes down to less than 300 or 250 or whatever, let's say, how are your numbers adding up?
Look, let's not forget only 190 seats have voted so far.
Right.
And there are 353 seats still to vote. So I am very reluctant to predict numbers. Even had everyone voted, my gut feeling on all these matters is that just as you don't predict a cricket score if you're a cricket fan as I am, and you don't predict an election result in terms of actual number of seats, because there's no scientific basis of being right. I'm very confident we can predict the results, but we can't predict the numbers. How we fare will depend also in the next few phases.
Right.
So, as the battle shifts increasingly to the north, and though many northern states, many northern districts in many states have voted, I think that a lot depends on our performance and those of our allies. And as of now, my perception is that we are gaining the momentum. And if we are gaining the momentum, then obviously this is going to give us the result we seek. The BJP could even end up as the largest single party in terms of its results, but they will not be able to form the government. Once they drop below a certain threshold, let's say 240, they won't even find allies. That humiliating wooing of Akali Dal in Punjab and the BJD in Odisha, which ended up with them being spurned by both these smaller parties.
Right.
Why was that necessary? Because the BJP has done the same calculation and realized they cannot win without allies, so they want to ensure they have allies before they enter the fray. But they're not going to get those allies after the results have come down.
But Dr. Tharoor, the counter, devil's advocate counter to this would be that wouldn't the Congress face the same challenge post-poll? Because what's going to happen is you also have very, very interesting allies, and many of them are political mavericks. And the point here is that, and there are contradictions that need to be managed. Your contradictions with TMC, for instance. Even AAP to a large extent, you had a senior leader resigning because of your alliance with the AAP. The TMC is openly attacking the Congress in Bengal. Mamata Banerjee leaves no stone untouched. She's attacking the Congress and the left much more than the BJP there. So the point is, the challenge to stitch together this alliance post-poll is perhaps going to be even tougher for the Congress than for the BJP, taking into account the other treasures that the BJP has.
I'm not worried for a couple of reasons. Number one, from the very start, the unusual thing about the India Alliance was that it came together so much before the elections. In previous episodes of coalition formation, these alliances came together after the elections, having attacked each other during the elections.
Right.
So number one, there's nothing unusual about parties that have disagreed with each other during elections, agreeing to serve in the larger interest. So the larger interest here is stopping the BJP. The BJP comes back to power for a third time.
Sure, yeah.
Many of them, Benjamin Franklin's famous line, if we don't hang together, we all hang separately. That is exactly what most parties realize.
Right.
Number one. Number two, if you look at the previous experiences, 2004, UPA came together after the election results. And there were parties like the TMC, which has served in Vajpayee's government. There were parties like the left, which had ferociously attacked us, for example, in Kerala, who supported this government. TMC as part of it, left from the outside in 2004, because they felt the more important thing was wresting control from the BJP leadership. The same logic will apply now. I have no doubt, and I do have friends in the very parties you're mentioning, who assure me that while there may be differences now, it's going to disappear the day there is a chance to form an alternative government to the BJP. As has happened in the past, in 2004, it will happen again in 2024. Final thought. When the India Alliance came up, it seemed to me even then that it was clearly understood that the alliance would only work on a state-by-state basis. Why do I say that? Because every state has its own political character and its own recent political history. And that means that, for example, in Kerala, my state, where for 55 years we and the LDF have been at loggerheads, the LDF being communist-led and the UDF being Congress-led, and with alternating power right up to the last elections. there was no question of us being able to come to an understanding on any seat. Even though I, for example, had been defeating a BJP opponent twice in a row, I took the seat from the communists. But the last two elections, BJP came second. So you could argue that if there is any seat in Kerala where the challenge is to stop the BJP, it is my seat.
Right.
Their strongest seat in Kerala. And yet, the left put a candidate who spent all his time campaigning against me. So when you see that, you know that Kerala, there is no question of understanding. Yet next door in Tamil Nadu, CPI, CPM, Congress, our ally, the Muslim League, and the DMK are together again, and there was no dispute, no debate, no argument. It's going very smoothly. So it varies. If two neighboring states can see two such realities, why will it surprise you that AAP is allied with us in Delhi, not allied with us in Punjab, and again allied with us in Gujarat? TFC might have been allied with us, they've served with us in UPA. But indeed, you're right that right now, the bad blood between the local Congress party and the local leadership of the TMC certainly has put us on different sides. But again, after the election results, we share a common interest in stopping the BJP from having a third term. So if BJP, for example, drops to a level at which they don't have enough NDA allies, and they're searching for allies elsewhere, I'm very confident that those allies would much rather prefer to be part of a more democratic UPA type or India alliance government, where they would also carry greater weight than an alliance with the BJP, because everyone knows that if you go to bed with a wolf, don't be surprised if you don't end up as dinner. And that's something which many smaller parties have learned bitterly when they tried to ally with the BJP in the last 10 years.
Okay, just switching the narrative a little bit. See, the thing is, in this election, it started, and I think there's been a palpable narrative on the government's record on poverty, on unemployment, on skilling, and so on and so forth. As the election is progressing and two phases are already over, what kind of resonance are you getting from people in terms of the apparent discontent over these issues? For instance, you see, India has a huge population. More than 54% of the population is less than 25 now, and they need jobs and they need skilling.
Exactly.
Also, what happens is we have a labor force of 32%, but out of which only 5% are skilled.
2.4% are skilled.
Not even 5. Okay. So 2.4% are skilled.
It was 2.3, unfortunately, under us.
And maybe the other 2.4
has gone up by 0.1 in the last 10 years.
And maybe the other 2.5 is semi-skilled. Let's put it this way. Okay. So what I'm essentially saying is that this kind of data, when you extrapolate this data and throw it into the cauldron, is it really resonating in terms of this campaign?
Yeah.
Are people speaking about this? Or see, the issue is there must be a reason why people are discontent according to you. There must be a reason why you're saying the BJP is losing. There has to be an underlying.
And that is the reason.
And what is
the reason? So, why would a young man who voted for Mr. Modi in 2014 because he thought he was going to get a job very soon, still vote for him, and he still doesn't have a job 10 years later? In 2019, the answer given to him was vote for us to keep the country safe. Pakistani terrorists attacking us at Pulwama. We are replying in Balakot, we will defend the country. And a lot of people were swayed by that. So despite the fact that in 2019, if you look at the polls before Pulwama, BJP was on the back foot. Unemployment was already high. The economy had not recovered from the self-inflicted disaster of demonetization. Large numbers of SMEs had shut down permanently. Many people who had jobs and incomes were thrown out of work and had no incomes. In those circumstances, they should normally have voted their self-interest.
Right.
But Balakot Pulwama transformed the narrative and they voted. Mr. Modi was able to make it a national security election. He can't do that this time. He's had economic failure behind him, high unemployment, high inflation by India standards.
Right.
It's not a globally high inflation, but in India's case, we're a very price-sensitive nation. Studies show that the average Indian family spends more than 72% of the income just on food. So when tomatoes or onions go up, that affects people because it's a large portion of their budget already. And these have all been going up systematically. On top of which the government's absolutely punitive taxation on petrol and diesel, which has raked in the money into their coffers, has hurt the Aam Aadmi. The GST, which they boast about, record collections of 2.1 lakh crores, Who is paying GST? It's the ordinary consumer. 60% of the population is giving this money to the government. Whereas the rich and the super rich, they are happily evading or avoiding, if you use the legal word, their tax responsibilities. We saw that in my own constituency, where my BJP rival is well known to be a billionaire with a fleet of cars and motorcycles and jets, and the gentleman practically pays no tax, less than an average salaried employee does in India. And that's because the rich know how to conceal their assets. And they know how to do it in such a way that they have no obligations to the state. Yet they can call themselves Deshbhaks, and the rest of us are anti-national. But we are the law-abiding citizens who pay our taxes. Now, all of this I say because obviously the ordinary person is beginning to wake up to these realities everywhere. If you are not employed, if you are one of the 80% whose income has gone down in the last 10 years, if you are one of those who cannot afford to buy at the bazaar what you could afford a few years ago, why would you want to bring this government back to power? It's as simple as that. And frankly, increasingly this is coming up. One of the interesting things about the so-called low turnout controversy in a couple of the first two phases in some of the northern districts. First, the explanation given was heat. Then they did detailed studies and realized there was no correlation between heat patterns and voting patterns or lack thereof. Now people are beginning to realize a lot of the low turnout was in hardcore BJP areas. It is BJP voters who are not enthused about voting for the government, who may not, for ideological reasons, may not be willing to vote for the left or Congress or Samajwadi or whoever the option was in their districts, but couldn't bring themselves out to vote for the BJP. Okay. This has got to worry Mr. Modi and Mr. Shah, and I think that's why all this desperately inflammatory rhetoric about Muslims.
Yeah, I was just quick, this question was going to be about that, and could you end it on this note? See, the thing is, how has the BJP's charge that your manifesto is a Muslim League manifesto, or how is that played out in terms of advantage or disadvantage?
It's a fraudulent charge.
Fair enough.
I was a member of the manifesto committee. There were only about a dozen of us working on it, 6, 7 most of the time. The word Muslim doesn't appear in the manifesto. The word redistribution doesn't appear in the manifesto.
That's absolutely correct.
Inheritance tax was not even discussed. These are all bogey issues taken from elsewhere and thrust down our throats. And it's being done because of their desperation. I must say that I think it was very unworthy of a Prime Minister, not only to mislead the public about the manifesto, which anyone can read, it's available online, but also, frankly, to say demeaning things about 200 million of our fellow citizens. If you're a Prime Minister, you're a Prime Minister of all Indians. You shouldn't demean your office in this manner. And I, for one, was deeply disappointed because I'm one of those who've grown up feeling respect for the office of Prime Minister, whoever the incumbent may be. And that respect has been severely eroded by this kind of language. Let me assure you that if voters think for 1 minute they get the truth back, they are not going to be influenced by this kind of nonsense. There are videos going around of BJP campaigners showing up and being questioned. Do you know this? Have you read the manifesto? Is this there? And they have no clue. They're simply parroting what their leadership wants them to parrot. So I want to assure you that not only is the public by and large aware that this is not a genuine charge, but that when you probe even 1 minute into the BJP campaigners' language, they begin to realize they don't have a leg to stand on.
Okay, I'll switch track to Goa, and my question is on double track.
Yeah.
The thing is, in the last, say, 1.5 years, there has been a major agitation, especially in South Goa, against the double tracking of the Southwestern Railways, with its apparent and obvious motive that it's going to be used to transport coal wagons that come into the Murmugao
Could be, it's the only reason.
Sure. But and then Goa being used as a conduit for coal transportation and so on and so forth, and a lot of the infrastructure which people allege is being done primarily to ensure that the coast is clear and comfortable for the transit of different kinds of vehicles and transportation to go to Karnataka and other places. Bellary, of course, that's the only way forward from there. Now, the point here is, how important do you think will these issues play out in the Goa elections, whether it's the whole issue of the double tracking or the Tamil Nadu project or highway expansions in Bhoma and other places? How is it playing out, and what's the feedback that you're getting?
I think all these three projects are really being seen negatively by the public on a number of grounds. There are those who are concerned about the fact that Goa doesn't benefit from 90% of what's going through these lines. Why should Goa have to bear the burden. There are those who are concerned about the ecological, environmental devastation that's involved. The chopping down of trees has already begun. Forests are going to be depleted. And interestingly enough, the Supreme Court has withdrawn the National Wildlife Board's clearance.
Yes.
So why they are proceeding with the project is very difficult to understand. Then there are those who are concerned about the damage being done to heritage homes and people's property. The proposed route lies right through people's homes and courtyards, in some cases their verandas.
That's right.
These are very serious issues. You can't have barbarism in the name of development. Who is development for? Development is for the people. But this is not going to benefit the people, it's going to hurt the people, and it's going to benefit a very, very small elite who's got an agenda of their own to work on. Let me just say very bluntly on this one, we stand with the people. We've been saying this from the beginning. I said it during the assembly elections here, and now that the Supreme Court has also weighed in very heavily, I have no doubt about this matter, that our candidates will pledge to oppose this issue nationally as well. I got a very interesting briefing from a former MLA, Mrs. Alina Saldana, came and saw me yesterday, with all the documents, the court judgment and so on. I've been reading them yesterday. The matter is open and shut. You can actually get a track from a port to Bellary through the east. You do not need to go through Goa.
That's
Why
right.
despoil this wonderful state against the wishes of its people? Damage the ecology of the Western Ghats, which is so fragile. I come from Kerala, and we have very comparable issues there. And at the same time, do so much damage to heritage, do so much damage to people's interests, when you actually have a simpler solution somewhere else, and where your existing line is not operating to capacity.
Right. My last question is on the Goa Congress and its organization. The point is, in 2017 and in 2022, you were hit by defections that has almost become like the DNA of the party now.
Oh,
and no, but
the DNA of those who defect.
Yeah, sure.
Is to be
but the point is that they are defecting from the Congress ultimately, and I also feel the Congress has not done enough to take action and arrest this. Why do there are people who go to temples and churches and pray that they are not going to defect, and their mass scale defections not once but hit by a tsunami of defections. There was a time when the Congress party here organizationally was completely weak and the bodies were completely finished. The whole issue is that even though the people narrative is, the point is people are not upset with the Congress, they are upset with congressmen. And the issue is how do you arrest this challenge, because it's not just about 2024, you're going to have an assembly election coming up in 3 years. So unless you repair that, how do you propose to move forward?
Well, the only way we could repair it, frankly, is by tightening the law and its implementation. We passed the law in 1985, the Rajiv Gandhi Law, the Anti-Defection Act. The problem has been that the BJP has found ways not to implement it in the spirit or the letter of the law. For example, we saw in Maharashtra the speaker sitting on a defection appeal for 3 years, almost. That kind of thing is, there is no provision that says a speaker must act within a particular time. Now, the Supreme Court has begun to wane.
Right.
But maybe what we should do is tighten the law. Number one, to make certain steps in the implementation of the law mandatory.
Why don't you have a very clear law saying anybody who defects loses membership straight away?
Straight away.
But that no party is willing to bite that bullet, because they know that they will also benefit equally from the loopholes in the law. I think why does the Congress say that, look, anybody who defects gets disqualified instantly?
I think that's where we'll be heading in that direction. The exact wording of the law, I'm not a lawyer. And there are people who are, in fact, I was at an event in Verna 2 days ago, where Mr. Radharao Rashis actually said he has a draft alternative law to propose that he's already prepared. I said, give me a copy. He said he'll send it to me, and I'm looking forward to it. I think we're all interested in finding a formula that will address
My
this.
final question is, you've been coming to Goa off and on, as a tourist as well. Apart from
Half a dozen. I'm not
Yes.
a tourist so much as somebody who's a fan of Goa culture. The Heritage Festival, the literary
Absolutely.
events, that kind of thing.
So, tell me, Dr. Tharoor, the issue is that from the late 90s and 2000s to now, how has Goa either evolved or descended into something which you would have never imagined? What's your take on the Goa that you've
Since I
said?
don't live here, I can't speak of the quality of life that may have been affected by some of the incidents we read about in the papers. From an outsider's point of view, it's just as beautiful as before, visibly so. And at the same time, the infrastructure is excellent, amongst the best in India. So you seem to have the best of both worlds. And certainly the spirit of the Goan people is what it is. It's such a joy. You were joking with me about my partying at the end of my first night here. But frankly, imagine there are not too many places. I think Meghalaya is the other one where I've had this experience. Where at the end of a hard day's campaigning, you let your hair down at a place where people are singing. These are young people singing. And there was I sort of being roped in by them to participate, and it was fun. So I love the spirit of the place, I love the culture of the place, I love its physical appearance. The issues I'm hearing about, like the sort of three linear problems you mentioned, like the controversies about dual citizenship and lack of employment for young people in Goa, all of these are issues that people live here and experience. And I wouldn't presume to tell you what you're all going through. What I will say is that clearly beneath the surface there are fundamental issues that need to be addressed and which the government of the day has failed to address. Partially, one might add, because they were never legitimately elected and they have bought their way into office in the last couple of occasions. And I must say that this makes them less representative than Goa deserves. On defections, I mean, the conscience of anyone who will go to a temple or a mosque or a church, swear an oath, and then break it with impunity must be an incredibly fragile conscience. I mean, it can't be one that any human being will be proud of. What surprises me is, why don't the Goan voters punish such people for having no scruples at all?
Dr. Tharoor, always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much.
Good talking to you too. Likewise.